I understand that we have to create an I out of nothing. What creates I?
First, self-knowledge. There is a very good Eastern allegory which deals with the creation of I. Man is compared to a house full of servants, without master or steward to look after them. So, the servants do what they like. None of them does his own work. The house is in a state of complete chaos, because all the servants try to do someone else's work, which they are not competent to do. The cook works in the stables, the coachman in the kitchen, and so on. The only possibility for things to improve is if a certain number of servants decide to elect one of themselves as a deputy steward, and in this way make him control the other servants. He can do only one thing. He puts each servant where he belongs, and so they begin to do their right work. When this is done, there is the possibility of the real steward coming to replace the deputy steward and to prepare the house for the master. We do not know what the real steward means or what the master means, but we can take it that the house full of servants and the possibility of a deputy steward describes our situation. This allegory helps us to understand the beginning of the possibility of creating a permanent I. From the point of view of self-study and of work to attain one I, we must understand the process by which we may come from this plurality to oneness. It is a complicated process and has different stages. Between the present state of plurality of I's and the one controlling I we wish to attain, there are certain stages of development which must be studied. But first, we must understand that there are certain formations in us, without knowing which we cannot understand how we eventually come from our present state to the state of one I, if it is possible for us. You see, although a great many of our I's are disconnected and do not even know one another, they are divided into certain groups. This does not mean that they are divided consciously. They are divided by the circumstances of life. These groups of I's manifest themselves as roles that a man plays in his life. Everybody has a certain number of roles. One corresponds to one set of conditions, another to another, and so on. Man himself seldom notices these differences. For instance, he has one role for his work, another for his home, yet another among friends, another if he is interested in sport, and so on. These roles are easier to observe in other people than in oneself. People are often so different in different conditions that these roles become quite obvious and well-defined. But sometimes they are better hidden or even played only inside without any external manifestations. All people, whether they know it or not, whether they wish it or not, have certain roles which they play. This acting is unconscious. If it could be conscious, it would be quite different. But one never notices how one passes from one role to another. Or if one notices it, one persuades oneself that one is doing it on purpose, that it is a conscious action. In reality, the change is always controlled by circumstances. It cannot be controlled by man himself, because he himself does not exist yet. Sometimes there are definite contradictions between one and another role. In one role, one says one thing, has certain definite views and convictions. Then one passes into another role and has absolutely different convictions and says absolutely different things without noticing it, or else thinking that one does it on purpose. There are very definite causes which prevent man from seeing the difference between one role or mask and another. These causes are certain artificial formations called buffers. Buffer is a very good name for these appliances. Buffers between railway carriages prevent clashing, diminish the shock. It is the same with buffers between different roles and different groups of I's or personalities. People can live with different personalities without them clashing, and if these personalities have no external manifestation, they exist internally all the same. It is very useful to try to find what buffers are. Try to find how one lies to oneself with the help of buffers. Suppose one says, "I never argue." Then, if one really has a good conviction that one never argues, one can argue as much as one likes and never notice it. This is the result of a buffer. If one has a certain number of good buffers, one is quite safe from unpleasant contradictions. Buffers are quite mechanical. A buffer is like a wooden thing. It does not adapt, but it plays its part very well. It prevents one seeing contradictions.